Hey, what's going on everyone? Sam here from Lake Pro Tackle. Guys, this video we're gonna be going over my top 3 big bass baits in the pre-spawn. Right now in Texas, the fish are gonna be still in that pre-spawn mode. We're about to get a warm front in along with a full moon, so that should start driving the fish up to the bank. So I'm super excited about that. Bedfish have been eluding me all year. I've been trying. I've caught a few off beds early on when it got a little warmer, and then they pushed back off. So if you're in the same boat with me, you're about to go into that full pre-spawn swing where those fish are being pushing up to the bank to go do their thing. Stay tuned. You're definitely not going to want to miss this. These are going to be my personal top 3. I've caught tons of massive fish in the pre-spawn on these baits here. And these baits, they'll catch a lot of fish, but they're also going to be kind of what I like to throw to weed out some of the smaller fish. A lot of these baits, I'm typically getting 4+ pounders, and depending on where you are in the country, a 4+ pounder might be a big fish for you. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and talk about the pre-spawn a little bit. The pre-spawn is a very odd time for the fish. They're moving up, they're moving back, they're going up and down in the water column. A lot can happen in the springtime. We've talked about it before. Springtime is just a weird time for these fish. We get warm fronts, we get cold fronts, we get rising pressure, we get lowering pressure. Barometric pressure can have a lot to do with how those fish set up during this time of year. All times of the year really, barometric pressure can determine if they're stuck down to the bottom or if they're going to be very suspended up. A lot of the times in the winter, most of my fish I've found suspended up, around that mid-range in the water column, and I can easily target them with something like a Demiki rig or an Alabama rig or maybe even a swim bait. But here going into the pre-spawn, a lot of these fish are going to be using what I like to call highways on the bottom of the lake. Whether it's a river channel or like a stump field, something like that. Those fish have these markers that I guess in the back of their heads, they know where to go spawn. Fish have that same mindset, that biological instinct that tells them exactly where to go in the lake. So it can change each and every year, but typically these fish are going to be following about the same routes on the bottom. So back on that point there, these fish a lot of the times in the pre-spawn are going to be on the bottom, cruising back to where they need to go in the backs of the creeks. And it doesn't have to be way back into a creek. A lot of fish that I find spawning the earliest are going to be actually main lake in just a little tiny pocket that when you look at it, you're like, I wouldn't even call that like a cove. It's just a little indentation that has some shallower water in the back of it that they can easily access off the main lake and then go back to main lake for their almost, summer patterns, kind of like the post-spawn patterns. So these fish that I like to target are typically going to be in the shallower coves to spawn or some of your major creek arms. A lot of these fish that I like to target with these baits here are going to be the ones that go and spawn a lot earlier than most of the other ones. The ones that I do, once I catch these big ones that go up early, I love going back and catching the ones that spawn later. I kind of just keep a progression going so I can stay on these fish as much as possible. And it's all going to change. I'm going to put out another video for y'all to track the movements of these bass depending on where you are in the lake. So let's go ahead and hop into the first bait here. I know you've been waiting. It's been a little bit, but the first bait that I'm going to throw in the early, stages of pre-spawn, going straight into spawn is going to be a topwater. This right here is going to be the Whopper Plopper, but this size here is going to be the 130 size. I get a ton of bites on the 110, but typically, like we said, we're going to be trying to minimize the amount of smaller fish. So if you're a tournament fisherman and you want to go for a big bite in the morning, which is a very good idea, I highly recommend you targeting the biggest fish of the day early in the morning in the springtime, because they're going to be moving the most. Whether you like covering a lot of water or you like staying in one place and picking it apart, I definitely prefer moving a ton of water, just covering it all with moving baits, and then early in the morning try to get that big bite so I don't have a lot of pressure on me, because I know I can go shallow, hit the bank when that sun comes up, and get those fish as they move out through the day. So number 1 is going to be this Whopper Plopper here in the 130 size. This one here is just a bit bigger than that 110, so I do feel like I get a lot bigger bites on this bait here. Next up is going to be another moving bait that I really love to throw. It's going to be the Mag Draft Freestyle. And the reason I like the Freestyle is it's weedless a lot of the times, and I like to throw the Owner Flashy Swimmer on it. So I can roll this through trees, brush piles, down the bank, rock piles, and all that. Literally fish it anywhere I want without getting hung up. I'm going to have probably around a 7'6" to 8-foot rod, medium heavy to at least a heavy. Most of the time, depending on how that blank feels, whether it's a dedicated swim bait rod or something like a hybrid rod. This one here is going to get a ton of bites in the pre-spawn months as well as going into spawn. I like to throw the 3/8 for targeting the fish that are just kind of cruising around, and I really love to throw a lighter one, especially if they're up closer to the bank in shallower water. So the Mag Draft here, it's 6 inches. It's honestly not that big. When I get into the full spawn mode, I'm going to be throwing something like the 8-inch to really target those giant fish, just really get them mad at that bait, and they'll go and hammer it. But this 6-inch here is still a great size bait for any 3-pounder. I've had a couple like 1 and 2 pounders eat 6-inch Mag Drafts with the treble hook on them, so just your typical Mag Draft. But the Freestyle here is going to weed out a lot of those fish. It's what I like to use on live scope in the pre-spawn time as well as spawn time when they are up on the bed. So this bait here, super easy to throw out, just reel in and get some big bites. Last up is going to be a flipping jig. You know, the flipping jig, it's kind of a hybrid. I get a ton of bites on it. A lot of them can be small, but typically as these fish are moving back and you hit certain cover like dock posts or you hit certain brush piles, throwing this bait in there will get you a ton of big bites. Now, arguably, I love throwing a drop shot, guys, but it's just not gonna give me the amount of bites or the amount of big bites that I want. So this jig here, this flipping jig by V&M, is the Adrenaline Flipping Jig in 1/2 ounce. This is a crawdad color, and I absolutely love throwing it. So you'll definitely want to check all these baits out here. They're going to be linked down below in the video, so go check them out, lakeprotackle.com, guys. And you know, we're probably going to put these Whopper Ploppers up on sale here in the next week. So I'm not sure when this video is going to air, but look out for the Whopper Ploppers to go on sale. Go check them out, guys. I appreciate you watching the video. Make sure you subscribe. We've only got 20% of the people in here watching this video are going to be subscribed. So help us out, guys. Let's get that number up. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and we will see you next time. Thanks for watching, guys.